We are going to explore the dimensions of consciousness, and we're going to start by actually exploring the dimensions of this spoon. What is this? Well, on one level, it is a spoon that you use to eat, but we can also describe it as a piece of metal, maybe stainless steel or whatever it is. And that stainless steel, the composition of that stainless steel is atoms of different elements. Those elements, those atoms, actually are made out of clusters of protons, neutrons, and electrons, all which are spinning rapidly around each other. And if we try to actually locate any of these, the position of any of these subatomic particles, we find that they are just probabilities, and we get into quantum theory. Instead of being a particle, they become a wave or a potential. And this is all happening in a vast space. Most of the atomic structure is empty space. Now, it would be very hard to recognize that when you are drinking your soup, because the property as a solid object is dominant. So all of these levels we can think about as dimensions of consciousness, or dimensions of this spoon, I should say. Dimensions of consciousness are very similar. The only difference is that they are experiential. And it is possible to experience ourselves having many different qualities and properties. These are the dimensions of consciousness. When we travel to other dimensions, so to speak, it's not that we go somewhere, like that we get on a rocket ship and travel to another dimension. It's that we learn to shift our focus to another property of our experience, to another quality of our experience, and engage with the content, engage with the reality at that level. Now, we do this all the time. Every person does this before we even get onto the deeper, the higher dimensions of consciousness. We can start by noticing two prominent dimensions in every person's experience. So we transfer from the metaphor of the spoon, I can put that down, to your experience of being conscious. We're going to use our focus to shift between the different dimensions of our experience together. So first, you are a physical body. That is true, a solid object, just like that spoon. If you hit your hand with the spoon runs into your hand because you are solid and the spoon's solid. That's what allows you to sit in your chair, allows you to play baseball, drive a car, all the things that we do. And this is one dimension of reality. But we shift our focus and notice our thoughts. Are our thoughts made of matter? Are our thoughts physical? Do they run into things? I would describe our mental experience as existing on a different dimension of reality, as do our dreams, the mental images we have. These exist on a different plane or a different dimension of reality where they don't actually interfere, they don't run into the physical structures of our body. So it's like there's two planes of reality which can coexist, which create a depth of field in our consciousness. They are related, but they have different properties and can coexist. So again, my thoughts aren't just running into my skull. I'm not bouncing off of my skull all the time. That would be really uncomfortable because they're not running into matter. They're not being blocked by physical matter. My thoughts can move perpetually. They have different laws and rules than the rules of our physical world. Okay, and so this is normal. This is within the regular bandwidth of all human beings, is that you can be connected to the physical dimension, but also the mental dimension. So where does it go from here? So next I want you to notice that you can, not only can you observe your thinking, but you can observe your emotion and the sensations of your body. And as we do this, we notice that although these are happening, you could say, in your physical body, in your nervous system, that they are fluid, that your emotions are fluid, your sensations are fluid. Experientially, the sensations and emotions that you experience and the thoughts that you experience are energy. They're not physical experiences. They're not matter. They're not blocks of stone. They are fluid by nature. And spiritual practice invites us to sink into the fluid experience of our body. And the more that we do this, the more that this dimension of reality comes into focus, the more we notice, the more content that we experience. So if you were to take a Vipassana retreat for 10 days, if you were to sit, as they do in Vipassana, 10 hours a day for 7 days a week, you would start to notice this very fluid dimension of life being prominent. It would be as real to you as your thoughts or as the physical world. Because in Vipassana, they sit all day long and just focus on this fluid experience. And what's very interesting is as you tune into the fluid movement of your energy, the energy that we say moves through our nervous system, the boundary of this energy starts to exceed the physical body, which means I start to have a felt sense of my energy, which is not bound by my physical body. So as I soften into my experience, as I learn to relax into my body and track the movement, what I experience is that energy is a field. So just as we move down an atomic structure, the physicality, the structure, the solidity of objects like a spoon breaks down. As we turn our attention to the fluid movement of energy through our nervous system, there is a parallel dimension of reality, that my body is a field, a flow. And the more I turn my attention to this, the more expanded this flow of energy becomes, meaning it expands beyond the boundary of my physical body, and ultimately my whole experience. I can feel myself, my felt sense can extend beyond the boundary of my physical body to flood, to fill my entire experience. And this is why in spirituality people describe God is love, or there is oneness, or there is unity. What they're doing is they're speaking about what energy feels like when it is in focus. When my nervous system is really fluid and alive and engaged, and I support this movement through various forms of spiritual practice or insight, then I perceive the world as one. So it's still true that I'm a separate physical object. I'm actually separate physically from the spoon. But experientially, when I tune into energy, when I allow this bandwidth or this dimension of consciousness to take up more focus in my experience, when I am attuned to it, I feel more and more like I am one with life. Like my body is not separate. And it's at this dimension that connection is possible. So when we talk about feeling connected to someone, how can I feel if we are all just separate physical units? How is it possible that we can feel connection? So the quality at the level of energy that brings people together, the glue of this oneness, is love and connection. So this dimension of reality is real. It's as real as the physical world or the mental world. It's just subtle. And it requires a transformation of consciousness, a shift in our capacity to feel, to be able to realize it. But once we realize it, we can reinterpret, re-experience so many of our experiences, the way we interact with people, the feelings we have. We can recognize how to relate to life at this level of a unified field of oneness. It's called many things. And much of the meditations that I do and teachings that I do are focused on this. After this, I'm going to record another video called The Evolution of Healing that's really going to focus on this particular dimension, which is really essential. But let's move on. It goes beyond this. So if you bring your attention to the fluid reality of life, one of the things that you will notice is that the past is not gone. And what do I mean by this? So this often happens in relational practice, especially, or when we are relating to other people, is that we notice that we are carrying the past in our body. So, for example, if I got bit by a dog when I was a child, I see a dog and all this fear and energy arises in me, which means this is what being triggered is. It means that something from the past is coming up and being activated by something that's happening in the present. So when we turn our attention to the fact that we are storing the past in our body, the energy of the past is still here. Right? At first, we don't make much of it, but as we learn to sink into this dimension of unity, what we start to realize is that the past is not gone. At the level of energy, the past is here. In this dimension of reality, time is not linear, meaning we don't move from the past into the future. All energy accumulates into one living field. It doesn't go away. There is a conservation of energy in this dimension of reality. So the more that we look at the unified dimension of reality, what we realize is that simultaneously there are actually many realities occurring at the same time. All periods of time, all life experiences, everything that you have ever experienced that has happened and will happen is here. So the more we look at this unified dimension of energy, the more it adds dimensions. Dimensions grow out of this experience. What the unified field, which felt maybe at first having one dimension, actually has many dimensions, meaning all energetic experiences coexist in this moment. Yeah, again, just see how you feel when I say that. So how is that possible? Well, again, the field of energy that we open to starts to take on more dimensions. The depth of field of our experience grows, just in the same way that it would be if you tried to find the position of an electron or a proton. So as we're moving through the dimensions of consciousness, the reality that we experience is getting much less fixed. First, I am here as a separate physical object. It's still happening. Then I become a field, a fluid field of energy that's happening now. And as I look at this fluid field of energy, it takes on more dimensions. It's actually all possibilities, all points in time of my life, all other beings, all other experiences are here too. So this means that the separate form is progressively breaking down. So at first I'm physical, and now here as I move towards what we could call the sixth dimension, all possibilities begin to emerge. And at this point, the structure of consciousness starts to change from a fluid, sort of love-based reality, love and connection being primary, to a light-based structure of consciousness. It's actually the fluid quality breaks down into an infinite number of frames of light. So this video or any other video, if you watch it, you're watching me right now, it is fluid. But if you were to look really, really closely at it, the fluidity of it would break down and you would recognize frames. It's actually made out of a bunch of still images. So energy at the fifth dimensional level, at the level of unity and love, is fluid. But as we look at it more and we realize the multiplicity, the fact that all experiences are held in the fluidity of this moment, that fluid reality breaks down and there is a crystalline structure of light, meaning that life is an endless series of frames that coexist in the same moment. So physical experiences breaking down as we progress, as is time and separateness and fixed positions and limited potentials. We're moving to a world of all possibility. We're moving to a level of reality of all possibility. And there's several dimensions or different ways to experience this. There's a dimensional quality of seeing this. And how do I explain that? Seeing this is like, just as you can see a mental image, just as you can see a dream, with the same capacity, you can start to see energy. It's not like you see it with your eyes. You see it with the same part of yourself that dreams. The same awareness that can perceive images and dreams begins to feel and see the past and the energy and light of reality as being here. So feeling and seeing become less separate in the subtlety of consciousness. You can feel and see. So the structure of reality is also less something that we that has solidity, and as it becomes more and more subtle, more and more as energy or light, it becomes something that we see and something that we feel. Reality, the structure of reality becomes a feeling, a sensation, an experience. So we can see it, we can see these potentials, and if we go even further, we feel a broader scope of potential, meaning we just have a felt sense of all possibilities, as if they haven't even taken form yet. These potentials and these possibilities have not taken form yet. And even beyond that, we have the impulse for these potentials. We have the imagining of what is possible. We don't see it yet, we don't feel it yet, we just imagine possibility. This is a very subtle sensation of like dreaming or imagining. And there's awareness. So just like there is a vast, all of this is empty space, as they say in science, awareness is everywhere. And so as we move through the potentialities, through the different ways we experience energy and light, we come to the empty, awake space of awareness, like the precursor to imagining potentiality. And awareness is here now. It's a very accessible thing for people. You often don't have to move progressively through all of the dimensions of reality to recognize it. The empty space of awareness is often a starting point for many spiritual teachings. The fundamental sense of being aware, an awake space. The space that holds all potential, all experiences, that holds this spoon and our bodies. And this is the end of the substance or the structure of consciousness. Beyond that is absolute reality, which is not awareness, it's not a quality, it's not a substance, it has no form, it does not exist. You cannot describe it because it has not been created. It's not alive. It has not been given birth to. This is the ground. The absolute reality is the ground out of which experience arises. Okay, so we've gone through it one direction, we're going to go through it the other direction. Okay, so just do your best to imagine non-existence. There is no existence. So the first thing that was birthed, the first thing that was created was awareness. In this sense, it is the primary aspect of creation or of consciousness, of experience. And it is the most subtle, meaning it has no forms in it, no variation. It's just an awake space. So we became curious. And then we imagined what could be, what we could be aware of. So added to this awareness is the dimension of imagining potential. And this takes even more form because we are curious. Now we start to feel. We start to have the ability to feel potential. And as it goes further, driven by our curiosity, by our desire to experience, we can begin to see. We can see potential. At this point, all potential. Life is taking form. It's beginning to become structured and have form. But not only did we want to experience all possibility, we want to experience really specific, limited possibilities. So all possibility starts to become sequenced. A series of potentials, not all potentials, but a linear flow of moments, one after the other. And at first, this is the frames that I described earlier. These are frames of light, but as we become more and more absorbed into these frames of life, they become fluid. Life takes on a fluid shape. We have moved through the dimensions, and we are now in the unified field of flow, which is dreamlike, where I experience myself, my experience has a form, but I am not yet separate. I am not yet divided from the world. And as we give more and more form to this energy, we get the physical reality, the sense of separate identity, the sense of me as an object. Progressively, there's more and more me. I start to think about myself. I have a self-concept, and my body takes form. Again, I describe this as a creative process. We are curious, and we can't help ourselves from going deeper into experience. That's quite a claim as to how reality is created. But we've taken this even further. You can see this. So again, we are curious, we desire experience, so we go deeper into consciousness. And I believe we are continuing to do that. That's what the digital reality is. We are being absorbed deeper into our experience, into our devices, like our phones and this computer that you're watching, or however you're watching this. Our consciousness actually extends into a sub-reality with totally different properties. We have built out, physically in the world, we've built out communication devices and technology so that we can have a sub-reality called the digital world. And it's very understandable that humans would want to do this for many reasons, but for me, primarily because that's the same impulse that created life in the first place. This is the source of creation, is the desire to experience. So which one of these realities is true and real? Well, the ones that you experience are true and real. If all you experience is a spoon that you think about and a physical body that you eat and drink to sustain, then those are what are real. The impulse to awakening is the desire which comes from beyond the physical world, beyond your hunger pains or your thoughts, to expand your consciousness into the full spectrum, to know the depth of field of consciousness, but also the source from which it arises, the absolute reality, which is the ultimate supreme self. How do we engage with this? If you want to expand into the spectrum of consciousness, how do you engage with it? How do you go deeper into consciousness? Well, as described in Vipassana, their practice is just to focus on the fluid quality, which means just to shift your focus to this unified field. And it starts by noticing your breathing and noticing the movement of sensations and noticing the movement of emotions. And the more that you spend your time here, the more this dimension fills out, and ultimately you can progressively move through all the dimensions of consciousness. That's one strategy. Another strategy meditatively is awareness practices in which you shift your focus to the space of awareness. This is a profound relaxation, taking you essentially to the foundational quality of consciousness. And over time, progressively, you will learn to turn your attention to your body and to feel and to fill in the whole depth of field of all dimensions of consciousness. You can also practice self-inquiry, in which you just, what is the source of my experience? And there are many ways that people respond to self-inquiry. Some include recognizing the absolute nature of reality. Some people land on awareness. Some people land in dimensions of love and light. But wherever you land progressively in your self-inquiry practice, the goal again is to relax the focus, to come back to the depth of field of consciousness, ultimately landing at the source of your experience. So there's 3 popular strategies. I'm going to add a 4th. I'm actually going to make another video after this about healing. Healing practices and relational practices are ways to engage in the 5th dimensional reality. So when we feel pain, when we miss people who have passed away, when we feel harmed by our relationships with our parents, or we don't belong in our culture and we feel oppressed, any of these things, there is a physical dimension to this. There is if I get beat up or I don't get enough resources. But I believe that healing is calling us to the 5th dimensional reality. It's actually at the level of unity that we've been wronged. It's the pull to love and connection that holds this 5th dimensional fluid reality of love together. And our grievances, our emotional grievances, for me, are all calls to the oneness, to the unity of our body, of our relationships, of our planet, of our species. It's at this level that we are one, and this is where all the pain comes from. So healing practices, relational practices, emphasize connection, that have us orient to how we feel in relationship, how we are affected by the relationships we have in the world, are all shifts to the 5th dimensional level. And if we can learn to take on our human life and all the ways in which we have pain and grievances from our time here, then we can expand into this reality of love and union and connection and progress from there. And this is our door. Ultimately, all of these things we will have to do. There is a tremendous beauty in this full spectrum of consciousness. It's not that one dimension is necessarily better, but it's very beautiful to look at your experience, to feel your experience, and to recognize all these different properties of life, from the physical all the way to the space of awareness and the transcendent reality of absolute non-existence. There's a beauty in seeing all these dimensions of reality working together in a kind of harmony, in perfect non-competition, working together. In the next video that I record, which I invite you to watch, it's going to be on the evolution of healing, which again is going to focus on this 5th dimensional level where I believe we are all going as humans. I hope this is helpful. If it is, or you are interested in this topic in any way, please write in the comments below how you would like me to share this work or this viewpoint with you more. I know I've covered a lot of ground very quickly here. I'd love to hear how this affects you and lands with you. May all beings know the beauty of the fullness of their consciousness and learn to relax, if they want to, into all of these dimensions. This is what I'm here for and what my work is here for.